Hello everybody. In this video, we are going to discuss risk and return in finance. First, let's understand why should we study about risk. Please understand that we cannot eliminate or avoid risk, but we need to determine whether it is worth taking up that risk or not. And if yes, we also need to learn how to apply appropriate risk-adjusted discount rates in our capital budgeting decisions. So where is the risk? Risk can come from four factors. The first is the cash flows. Remember, when we are taking our capital budgeting decision, we are predicting cash flows for the future. And the future is very uncertain. Things may work out as per our projections or it may not. Second is a standalone asset may be more risky than a portfolio. If you are holding only one kind of a share, then it is risky as compared to holding a combination of shares in your portfolio. Because it happens that if there is loss in one, at least it will be offset by the profits of the other one. Third, there are company specific risks. For example, a company facing shortage of raw materials will not be able to produce enough to meet the demand, and so therefore your revenue will go down. And fourth is the market specific risk. We have all witnessed that during the pandemic we were all in home quarantine, and this resulted in no footfalls in the malls, leading to less sales. Let's understand how return of a share is calculated. So the formula is given as rate of return is equal to annual income plus ending price minus beginning price, and we are dividing the whole thing by the beginning price. This annual income that we are talking of is the dividend. All right, and beginning price, when I use the word, it means it is the price at which the share was purchased. So this formula I am now breaking it up into two components. So the first component is annual income divided by price at which the share was purchased. The second component is the difference between the selling price and the buying price. All right, and again I am dividing it by the price at which it was purchased. So therefore the rate of return is current yield plus capital gain or loss that you have experienced. When our selling price is greater than the price at which we bought, we have a capital gain. It can be the other way around also, that my selling price is actually lower than the price at which I had purchased. So then I will have what is known as a capital loss. These are the standard formulas for calculating mean and standard deviation. So expected return is nothing but the mean. All right, and it is that same calculation that you have learnt in your statistics class. And this formula for expected return and standard deviation of the return, we are going to use this formula when we are talking of future returns and not what has happened in the past. All right, so the moment we have the word expected, it means that we are talking of the future. If you have data given in this following form, where the rate of return is given to you, these are the rates of returns and their associated probabilities. So like you are told that you will earn a rate of return of 10 with the probability of 40%, and you can earn 20 rate of return with a probability of 40%, or maybe you can earn 30 but it has a probability of 20%. Okay, So when you are given this kind of a data, you will use the formula that I have just showed you, and you will calculate the mean and the standard deviation. So 10 into 0.4 is 4, 20 into 0.4 is 8, 30 into 0.2 is 6, and if you total it up, it comes to 18. So this R bar, which is summation of PI, RI, this is the mean rate of return, 18%. And you can also calculate the standard deviation. And in this case, we have found out that the standard deviation is 7.48%. So how do we use this in finance? So this means that on an average, you can expect a return of 18%, but it may fluctuate 7.48% positively or negatively. All right. So if you take mean plus minus 1 times standard deviation, it means that your returns can go as low as 10.52. 10.52 means 18 minus 7.48. So this is 10.52. Or it can go as high as 25.48. That means 18 plus 7.48. And if you consider mean plus minus 2 times standard deviation, all right, then the return is going to fluctuate in the range of 3.04% to 32.96%. So higher the standard deviation, higher is the fluctuation. Now a high standard deviation will work favorably in good economic circumstances. Can you see when it is positive, you go up very high. All right. So these are the high figures. But in case of a downfall, you can see it will go down. So 2 times standard deviation is 3.04. That's a very low rate of return. So we are using standard deviation as a measure of risk. Now suppose you have 4 options and you have calculated the expected return and the standard deviation. So which one will you select? So what we will do is that we are going to divide this expected return by the standard deviation. All right. And we have these units that we after calculation. All right. So this is expected return divided by standard deviation. Now you will select the one that has the highest return per unit of risk. So this is how we use expected return and standard deviation. Let's understand another word which is called portfolio risk. For simplicity, let us assume that a portfolio is a combination of different shares that we hold. All right. Now this portfolio risk has 2 components. One part is diversifiable, another part is non-diversifiable. Okay. And this total portfolio risk, we have divided it into 2 groups. The diversifiable one is also referred to as unit risk, and non-diversifiable component is also referred to as market risk. Let's understand these terms, unique risk and market risk. So this unique risk or diversifiable risk, it arises from firm-specific factors. Suppose you are holding the share of a particular company. All right, the returns that you will get are impacted by firm-specific factors. For example, development of a new product. So your company must have introduced a new product, but this new product is reducing the sales of existing product, and in the process it is leading to reduced cash inflow. So therefore, profits are going to go down. Or it could be that there is a labor strike. Your production has come to a halt, which will again affect your cash inflow. Or maybe there is a new competitor in the market and therefore your sales have reduced. All right. So these are very specific things associated with this company whose shares you are holding. It is also known as unsystematic risk because it is affecting only that concerned firm. So therefore, you can see now three words: unique risk, diversifiable risk, and systematic risk. So they are talking of the same thing, that is the risk arising from firm specific factors. So you have another word which is called market risk or non-diversifiable risk. And this arises from economy-wide factors. The earlier one was very company specific. Now this one is kind of general, economy-wide factors. For example, the growth of GNP. If your GNP or GDP decreases, consumption will come down and it will lead to less sales and reduced cash inflow. Vice versa, it can go the other way. When GDP goes up, consumption will go up, more sales, more cash inflow. Then you have level of government spending. So if the government is spending money on infrastructural activities, there's a lot of money which is coming into the economy. And so therefore, the money supply in the economy increases and therefore people have more purchasing power in their hands. So they will buy a lot of goods and all that. Okay. And therefore, the sales will go up. Vice versa, if the level of government spending decreases, money supply is going to be reduced in the economy and it will affect your cash inflow. The interest rate structure. If the company is borrowing from the bank and interest rates are very high, all right, then its cost of production will go up, no? And prices will go up, therefore leading to less demand and less sales and less cash inflow. Then you have the inflation rate. Again, when inflation rate is very high, the purchasing power goes down. So therefore, people stop buying goods and services and therefore it affects the companies. Now this kind of risk is known as systematic risk. Why? Because it systematically affects all the securities. So irrespective of which industry you are operating, this market risk is going to affect all shares. So how do we use this information? So like I said earlier, that portfolio is a collection of different securities. No? And we said it is called a diversifiable risk. So there's a diversifiable risk. Why? Why is it called diversifiable? Because one can change the securities in the portfolio and get rid of the risky ones. So to some extent, you can reduce your diversifiable risk. All right. And the non-diversifiable risk, because all securities in the economy are affected. Like I said, irrespective of what company, what industry, all securities are going to be affected, except that the degree of effect will differ. For example, the coronavirus scare affected sales of all products and services. But consumption of luxury goods and services were hit most as compared to the necessity items. All right. So therefore, it is going to affect all securities in the economy, but the degree of effect will differ. So as a finance manager, you need to understand how to reduce this portfolio risk. You can reduce it. See, you cannot eliminate it. All right. You can reduce it by having different securities in the portfolio. We said that unique risk can be addressed, but not the market risk. No? So therefore, you have a combination of securities in the portfolio in such a manner that these securities should not be perfectly positively correlated. All right, we all understand that if two shares have perfect positive correlation, it means that when one is doing well, the other one will also do well. And if one is doing badly, the other one will also do badly. For example, if you have a portfolio where you have shares of the steel industry and the cement industry, so both of them cater to the construction industry, isn't that? So when construction business is booming, steel also will do well, cement will also do well. So both these shares will do well. But if the construction industry does badly, then both steel and cement is going to be affected. All right. So this is a case of perfectly positively correlated shares. But if you have combination of shares that you have from steel industry and you have from the pharmaceutical sector, so there is no relationship between these two. All right. Therefore, if one is doing well, then I mean, if both of them are doing well, fine. But if one is doing badly, it is possible that the other one is doing well. No, so you can offset, your loss can be offset by the benefits of the other share. So in this manner, you can keep on changing your securities in your portfolio, and accordingly the risk can come down. So as the number of securities increase in your portfolio, this risk is going to come down, but it will never become zero. All right. Why? Because you can see this dotted line indicates the market risk. The market risk will be always there. Market risk you cannot do away with. Another measurement of market risk is beta. So market risk of a security reflects its sensitivity to market movements. So when we say market movements, let us understand in the context of the stock market. So if the stock market is booming, what is your share doing? Is it also going up? If it is going up, how fast is it going up or how slow it is going up? Okay, so this sensitivity is called beta. So beta measures the extent to which the return on a security fluctuates with the return on the market portfolio. And different securities display differing sensitivities to market movements. For the market portfolio, we say beta is going to be 1, and then we make the comparison. So a security that has a beta of more than 1 experiences greater fluctuation than the market portfolio, which means that if the stock market is going up, this share price will also go up, but it will go up faster than the market. All right. And a security having beta less than 1 fluctuates less than the market portfolio. So if the market portfolio is going up, this security with beta less than 1 will go up, but it will go slowly. But understand that the reverse can also happen, no? So if the share has beta of more than 1, it means if the market falls down, this share will fall faster than the market. On the other hand, the shares having beta less than 1 will fall but slowly as compared to the market. So if the return on the market is expected to rise by 10%, then the return on the share will rise by beta times 10%. And beta values vary from 0.3 to 2 and are rarely negative. So this was a small discussion on risk and return. Thank you very much for tuning in.